Welcome to bongosikha. Today I am going to discuss the Council of Ministers, Central Council of Ministers. So first you have to know that what is the Council of Ministers, which is very important for your understanding. The Indian Constitution has adopted, as we already have discussed in our earlier classes, that our Indian Constitution has adopted the parliamentary model of government, system of government, modeled on the British replica or the British pattern. So the Council of Ministers, headed by the Prime Minister as its head, the Prime Minister as its head, and the Council of Ministers is the real executive authority in the politico-administrative system of our country. So Council of Ministers is the chain, is the circle with the Prime Minister as its head, and to aid and advise the President, that is the head of the state. And earlier also I told that Prime Minister is the head of the government and President is the head of the state. So this is the Council of Ministers. Now in the Constitution there is no detailed provisions regarding the Council of Ministers. That constitutional provisions, there is no elaborate description regarding the composition, regarding everything of the Council of Ministers. Only Article 74 and Article 75 deals with the Council of Ministers. Article 74 deals with the Council of Ministers regarding their status, the status of the Council of Ministers, while Article 75 deals with the Council of Ministers regarding their appointment, their salaries, their emoluments, their pensions, their facilities, their qualifications, and so on. So these are the Article 74 mainly, and Article 75 which deals with the Council of Ministers with the Prime Minister in a broad sketchy manner. So this is about the constitutional provisions. Now I am coming to constitutional provisions. Only two articles I have discussed till now, that is Article 74 which deals with the status, and Article 75 that is the everything, that appointment, tenure, security, their qualifications and so on, everything. So Article 74, according to Article 74, there shall be a Council of Ministers with the Prime Minister as its head to aid and advise the President, means the head of the state. And the Prime Minister is the head of the government. Always remember these two things because these are very important, that head of the state is the President and head of the government is the Prime Minister, and Prime Minister is the real executive authority. So the Council of Ministers with the Prime Minister as its head to aid and advise the President, who will act in accordance with the Constitution. The President may require the Council of Ministers in some cases to change their policies or to make some rectifications or doing some changes. And it is completely the will of the Council of Ministers that whether they will consider some that changes which is recommended by the President, or they may simply leave it. But whatever the aid and advice has been tendered by the Council of Ministers with the Prime Minister as its head is binding upon the President. The President is bound to obey or to follow those aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. And moreover, one more point is there, that is the decisions, the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers which is tendered on the President shall not be questioned in any court. So this is the completely later I will discuss that Amendment 42nd and 44th Amendment Act made it completely binding on the President, the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers completely binding on the President, and along with that the decisions cannot be challenged, cannot be inquired in any court, to maintain a secret close relationship between the President and the Council of Ministers. So this is the reason actually behind this, that why such type of provisions have been in the Constitution, are there in the Constitution. Now Article 75. Article 75 deals with the Prime Minister. We all know that Prime Minister is appointed by the President of India, and the other Council of Ministers are appointed by the President on the recommendation of the Prime Minister. So this is first thing. Another point, the total number of ministers, including the Prime Minister, shall not exceed the 15% of the total strength of the Lok Sabha. So the total number of the members shall not exceed 15% of the total strength of the Lok Sabha. This was added by the 91st Amendment Act of 2003. So this is another point, means under Article 75. Next, that ministers hold their office till or during the pleasure of the President, because the President appoint the Council of Ministers on the recommendation of the Prime Minister, so they can enjoy their office during the pleasure of the President. The President always administered the oath of secrecy and the oath of office. Before entering the oath of office, the oath has been taken by the ministers, which is rendered by the President of India. Then a minister, any member can be a minister on the recommendation of the Prime Minister, but in that case, he can be a minister for a maximum period of consecutive 6 months. Within that, he has to be a member of either house of the parliament, either by nomination or by election. Otherwise, this is to be a minister. তাহলে মানে যে কোনো পার্সন, যে কোনো ব্যক্তি কিন্তু মানে মিনিস্টার হতে পারে অন দ্য রেকমেন্ডেশন অফ দ্য প্রাইম মিনিস্টার। প্রাইম মিনিস্টারের রেকমেন্ডেশন থাকলে প্রেসিডেন্ট তাকে করতেই পারে, কিন্তু সেক্ষেত্রে সে ম্যাক্সিমাম সে যে টেনিয়ারটা পাবে, সময়টা পাবে, সেটা হচ্ছে 6 মাসের জন্য। 6 মাসের মধ্যে তাকে আইদার বাই নমিনেশন, মানে কেউ নমিনেট করলো থ্রু নমিনেশন, অর বাই ইলেকশন, যে জিতে ইলেকশন জিতে ভোটে জিতে তাকে যে কোনো একটা হাউসের মেম্বার হতেই হবে। সে যদি কোনো হাউসের মেম্বারশিপ না হয় তাহলে কিন্তু তার যে মিনিস্টার, সে যে মিনিস্টার, সে ব্যাপারটা কিন্তু টার্মিনেটেড হয়ে যাবে, সেটাকে বাতিল করে দেওয়া হবে। সো দিস ইজ মোস্ট ইম্পর্টেন্ট থিং উইচ ইউ হ্যাভ টু রিমেম্বার। অ্যান্ড অ্যাপার্ট ফ্রম দিস, দ্য স্যালারিজ, অ্যালাউন্সেস, অল দ্য emoluments of the Council of Ministers, and that shall be determined by the Parliament. So this is about the Article 75. Now Article 77, it entails clearly, Article 77 of the Constitution clearly stipulates that all the executive actions shall be taken by the President on the advice of the Council of Ministers with the Prime Minister as its head. So this is Article 77. Now Article 78. So it is the duty of the Prime Minister to convey or to communicate all the decisions, all the actions which have been taken by the Council of Ministers to the President regarding the administration of the affairs of the administration and the proposals for legislation. And so the President may call for to furnish the information, as the President may call for regarding the administration of the Union and the proposals for the legislation. So this is the duties of the Prime Minister, to convey everything, what the Council of Ministers are going, what decisions they are going to take, what policy formulations are going to happen. Everything to communicate to the President is the duty of the Prime Minister. Next, that Article 88, that every minister, as I told right now, I have discussed, that every minister has the right to take part in the joint sitting of the House, to sit in the House, but only which house he is a member. He cannot vote of either house of which he is not a member. মানে যে হাউসের সে মেম্বার, সে হাউসে সে কিন্তু অংশগ্রহণ করতে পারবে। যেটা সে নয়, যে হাউসের সে আইদার সে যদি লোকসভার হয় তাহলে লোকসভা, যদি সে রাজ্যসভার হয় তাহলে রাজ্যসভা, কিন্তু সে যদি সেই মানে সেই হাউসের যদি সে নমিনেটেড মেম্বার না হয় তাহলে কিন্তু সে সেখানে হি শ্যাল নট বি এন্টাইটেলড টু ভোট। তো এটা গেল হচ্ছে আর্টিকেল 88। এবার নেক্সট হচ্ছে নেচার অফ অ্যাডভাইস বাই দ্য মিনিস্টার্স। অ্যাজ আই টোল্ড, অ্যাজ আই ডিসকাসড রাইট নাও, দ্যাট আর্টিকেল 74 which gives emphasis that the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers will be rendered on the President of India, and 42nd Amendment and 44th Amendment Act made it that the decisions so rendered by the Council of Ministers on the President is binding. The President is bound to obey those aid and advice which is tendered by the Council of Ministers with the Prime Minister as its head. And I told right now that these decisions cannot be challenged. So this has been done to maintain the confidential and close relationship between the Council of Ministers and the President. So this is very clear by the 42nd Amendment Act and the 44th Amendment Act. You have to remember this very clearly. So next, appointment of the ministers. The Prime Minister is appointed by the President, while the other ministers are appointed by the President, but on the recommendation of the Prime Minister. So this means that the President can appoint only those persons who are recommended by the Prime Minister of India. So usually the members are either from the Rajya Sabha or from the Lok Sabha, because two houses are there in the parliament, the upper house and the lower house, the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha. So a person who is not a member of the parliament, he has to be a member of the parliament within 6 months, within either by nomination or by election. Otherwise this is to be a minister. Just now I have discussed this point. So this is next, that oath and salary of the ministers. To bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution, to uphold the integrity and sovereignty of the nation, then to faithfully discharge the duties to serve the people without any fear and favor, and constitutionally and faithfully to serve the people. So these are all the oath and salaries of the ministers. Now the responsibility of the ministers, collective responsibility. As I told in the Prime Minister when I was discussing that time also, that collective responsibility is the bedrock principle of the Council of Ministers. So Council of Ministers act together, swim together, sink together. So the Council of Ministers are accountable to the Lok Sabha for all their acts of omissions and commissions. Article 75 clearly states that the Council of Ministers, including the Prime Minister, is responsible to the Lok Sabha for all their acts of omission and commission. They work always as a team, as I told right now, that they work together, they swim together, they sink together. Even when the Lok Sabha passes a no confidence motion, the whole ministry has to resign. That is why the no confidence motion, the Lok Sabha can make the government unstable. And it is the duty of the Council of Ministers to stand by the decisions of the cabinet inside and outside the house. If any member doesn't support the decision of the house or doesn't stand by the cabinet, not house, cabinet, then he has to resign or he must resign. So it is the sole responsibility of the Council of Ministers to help, assist and to stand beside the cabinet. So this is about next, the individual responsibility. Article 75 contains that the principle of the individual responsibility. It states that the Council of Ministers hold their office during the pleasure of the President, which means that the President can remove any minister even when the majority or the ruling party is enjoying the absolute majority in the Lok Sabha. Means there is no confidence motion by the Lok Sabha, but still President can remove any person, any minister on the recommendation of the Prime Minister. So in case of dissatisfaction or disagreement or the dissatisfaction over the performance of any minister, the Prime Minister can dismiss him or can advise the President to dismiss that minister. So it is the individual responsibility which ultimately is connected with the collective responsibility, so which entitles by Article 75. Next, that composition of the Council of Ministers. The Council of Ministers consists of the three categories of ministers: cabinet ministers, ministers of state, and deputy ministers. So the cabinet ministers is the most important executive sole power of the Council of Ministers. Later I will discuss about the cabinet ministers. The difference between them, that three types of the ministers what I discussed right now, the difference between them is only lies in their respective importance, their salaries, their ranks, their emoluments, and political importance. So this is the composition of the Council of Ministers. Now the cabinet ministers. The cabinet ministers head the most important portfolios, and they very few important influential ministers are the members of the cabinet ministers, 15 to 20 members at maximum, and they are responsible for all the charges or all the portfolios which are of national importance. National importance means like defense, foreign affairs, currency, coinage, treaties, alliances, that external affairs, and so forth. So cabinet ministers are in charge of the national importance. Now I am going to discuss the distinction between the Council of Ministers and the cabinet ministers, because the Council of Ministers consists of the three types of ministers, as I discussed right now, that the cabinet ministers, the deputy ministers, and the cabinet ministers. Whereas the cabinet ministers is a part of the Council of Ministers. So Council of Ministers consists of these three types of ministers, but cabinet ministers is a part of the Council of Ministers. Council of Ministers consists of maximum 60 to 70 members, but cabinet ministers consists of maximum 15 to 20 members. So this is another difference, and all the powers are vested in the Council of Ministers in theory. In practice, all the functions, all the policy formulations, all the acts have been taken by the cabinet ministers. They take all the important decisions, they implement the policy formulations. Everything in practice has been done by the cabinet ministers. So cabinet ministers basically work for the latter. Latter means that is the Council of Ministers. So Council of Ministers are having powers only in theory, but cabinet ministers, they are having powers in practice. They take all the decisions practically, implement the policies. So they are the real executive. So that is the difference between the cabinet ministers and the Council of Ministers. Now the kitchen cabinet, that cabinet ministers, as I told, that cabinet ministers consists or comprises of 15 to 20 members who are very influential ministers and hold important portfolios of national importance like defense, foreign affairs, external affairs, currency, coinage. So they hold a very, but still a smaller body in the cabinet is called the inner cabinet or the kitchen cabinet. That kitchen cabinet comprises of maximum 3 to 4 influential colleagues of the president, prime minister. So whom the president trusts most, or with whom the president can discuss every problem. So most trusted colleagues, they are the most trusted colleagues of the prime minister. খুব বিশ্বস্ত যারা প্রাইম মিনিস্টারের খুব কাছের, খুব বিশ্বস্ত যারা, যাদের উপরে প্রাইম মিনিস্টার খুব ভরসা রাখেন, আস্থা রাখেন, সেই সমস্ত 3-4টে এই ধরনের মিনিস্টারদের নিয়ে একটা স্মল বডি, ক্যাবিনেটের মধ্যে আবার একটা ছোট সার্কেল, সেটা হচ্ছে ইনার ক্যাবিনেট বা কিচেন ক্যাবিনেট, খুব স্মল body, but they take all the important decisions. They help the Prime Minister of India to take any important decision on any national issues, to how to implement the policies. Every matter they help the Prime Ministers in all way. So this is the kitchen cabinet or the inner cabinet. So I hope that you all have understand what I have discussed right now. So this is all about Council of Ministers. Thank you.